Still on our way to the other entrance of the Tower of Babel. My fault, I probably should have gone directly forward after first recruiting Edge, but again, it's not like there's any real sense of urgency around here. Hell, there's not even a sense that we're getting close to the end of the game. It's not feeling anywhere near like a conclusion's coming soon. This is the second time in the game that Golbez has had all of the crystals that we know about. The first time, it turned out, there were another 4 for him to gather to do whatever the hell he wants to do. What's stopping the game from moving the villain's endgame goalpost again to keep things going for a good while longer? I wouldn't like that happening. I'd prefer if the story was angling to come to the finish soon from now. But it's not like the flow of the bare bones story is doing much to make it feel like things are actually winding down. Hell, we've just been introduced to our final player character, someone who is notably a number of levels lower than anyone else on the team. There is just no way the story is going to end in around 2 hours at the very least. I'm not going to outright check how much footage I have left to work through in this game at the moment. I'm sure if I did, it would be a pretty depressing number. Anyway, looks like we've made it to the Tower of Babel again. Really, just a single hallway between it and the save point. I'm not sure what I was expecting, but at the very least, there should have been more distance there. Somehow was expecting the ice magics to do more damage than that. And I also wasn't expecting the last one to do so little damage when he blew up. I mean, I know it's called a balloon, but still. Well, we're certainly burning through regular potions at a fast rate at this point. So that's Edge's big contribution for the moment, getting us through a wall that is otherwise something we can't get through regardless of what direction we try to walk through. And now there's no way we can retreat back to the cave town or the previous save point. We have no choice but to push forward. So it's a good thing that I felt about as ready as we're gonna get at this point. Part of me kind of wishes the game did a better job of warning us when there is a point of no return. There have just been so many over the course of the game, or at least it's felt like there have been a lot of points of no return in this game, where we have no way to do any backtracking beyond a certain point. It just really feels like such an overused card. But then there are a lot of overused cards in this game. Really? We're 28 clips in, and one of the enemies trying to do a suicidal attack does, at best, 150 damage? Granted, not everyone is as durable as one another due to differing hit point numbers and armor values, and for some reason, Edge, a guy who uses melee weapons, has less health than Rosa, our supposedly squishy white mage, who you are very encouraged to keep in the backline every time you have her along. I mean, sure, she's several levels higher than him, but I would think a guy who's getting into knife fight range would be a little meatier, a little more durable than the medic who at best plinks away at the enemy with arrows when she isn't trying to keep everyone from dying around her. It's not all that major of a thing, but still, it's not doing Edge any favors out here. Again, his intro scene was rather lackluster, highlighting the fact that he's an idiot who doesn't think things through, and has a very high opinion of himself despite how outclassed he is this far in. Hell, even Tella seemed to have more of a sense of self-preservation and an ability to tell what was going on around him. And that guy was so consumed by bloodlust that he literally killed himself, giving the main villain a major headache, and his dying words were, "Avenge me." There is just nothing that really makes me look at this new member of the team positively. There are at least 2 other characters who do some of the same things better. As a side note, maybe I was wrong to consider the sorcerer behind the knights to be the more dangerous threat. I mean, his sprite looks pretty silly, and I'm pretty sure the ghost knights are gonna just stick with either using bio on us or trying to slash us with their oversized swords. Whereas I have no clue what that sorcerer was going to do. He looked like if the Hunchback of Notre Dame and a goblin had a child and said kid had a crippling drug addiction. Certainly a very striking appearance. But it doesn't really feel like it fits with most of the other enemies we've been coming across so far in this dungeon. But then, I might be the only person who gives a damn about that sort of thing this far in. The boss fight against the 3 sisters felt like it came out of nowhere, and those 3 felt visually out of place for the entire game. The Frankenstein monster guy felt like he came right out of a Dragon Ball manga, back in the part of the story when Goku was still a kid and hadn't learned to fly without using outside assistance. Granted, it probably doesn't matter all that much if a monster or character doesn't visually fit in too well, since again, this was the first time the series really tried to do anything involving a more complicated story. Still, when the vast majority of the things we fight against feel like they fit, even the things that are oddly technological in this fantasy world, the things that don't are a little harder to ignore, especially when they come as a frickin' boss fight. Lovely! His big fire move isn't effective even against ogres. Edge, you are making me nostalgic for having Edward on our team, and he's not meant to be a fighter. I could have sworn that a high potion was supposed to restore 500 health, not around 400. Am I confusing it for how it works in other Final Fantasy games, or does it work that way in the menu screen, but not the actual battlefield? And for God's sakes, Rosa can take a bump better than the ninja we just recruited. Rosa, the team medic, the girl we had to rescue from a half-assed kidnapping attempt that forced us to give up a crystal, and before that, someone who succumbed to a desert sickness that nobody else in the entire game ever gets affected by. And she is more capable of holding her own in a fight than the ninja we gained at a level that the game assumes we should be at this stage of it. Or was it the game's intention that he be underleveled and less capable than everyone else at this point, and he'll grow into it? The nature of random encounters makes it tough to be able to figure that sort of thing out. I suppose the fact that he's landing regular hits pretty close to the damage levels that Cecile and Kain are dealing out is kinda good enough, but the way the game is handling its characters is making me very much tempted to make Final Fantasy III my next LP'd part of the franchise. I'm pretty sure that the later games, 5 onwards, do a much better character job than this game does. And comparing this game unfavorably with its sequels would feel a bit unfair in its own right. This is the foundation they were built off of. It'd be more than a little ridiculous if this game was somehow better in terms of storytelling than the games when storytelling became more of an industry standard. Especially since this game inspired that standard. That said, I just feel like the game spent all of its actually good writing just to get us this far in. And there's only so much slack I can give it for being an old game. There's still a chance that there are some moments later on in this game that will land positively for me, but the last moment I felt was good was Telecast and Meteor. A moment that the rest of the cast did nothing to capitalize on, and it was followed by Golbez getting an unearned near kill of Cecile, only to back away because of a migraine. And then we took out one of the elemental fiends to no fanfare immediately after. probably should have used Cure on Rosa instead of Cecile since she's more injured at the moment. But this is another throwaway fight against a bunch of repeating enemies. Granted, the random encounters are more dangerous than the bosses in this game, but still, they're dangerous because of the sheer number of them, and how they can wear us down as we keep pushing forward. Whereas a boss would be able to remove a much larger chunk of health than what the random encounters would in a single attack. Just noticed the timer on the menu screen. 11 hours into this game, huh? Certainly feels exhausting this far in at the moment. Mostly because the game hasn't thrown anything at us that could potentially reinvigorate me. Sure, things have been happening, and we've gone to a good number of places that we haven't been to before as we keep pushing onwards. It's not that we've stayed static. But there's no getting around the fact that a large amount of the things that the game wants to treat as pretty dramatic have been falling flat for a vast majority of it. Part of me wants to find this group interesting. It kind of feels more balanced than the usual random encounters we come across, at least visually speaking. 2 magic-focused enemies on the top, 1 pure physical enemy at the back, and 1 kind of in between. Though maybe that's just my mind playing a bit of a trick on me, acting as if the enemy hasn't been pulling some good formations of lower-end enemies in the various encounters we've had over the course of the game. This certainly isn't as grueling to deal with as some of the fights against some of the kinds of hedgehogs we ran into earlier on. Still something to keep an eye on since we just lost Rosa in a single move. That felt more luck-based than those constant counterattacks earlier on, where we were triggering them over and over again. And I distinctly remember later on in the game we're gonna have to deal with more constant counterattacks. Right. Of course, Cecile doesn't know the revival spell. Well, we're definitely running out of healing items at this point. Hopefully we'll be done with this dungeon relatively soon so we can restock. Hopefully at a town that actually sells high potions. Sure, Rosa is a damn good medic, but as the last fight showed, all it takes is some bad luck and she's down. Granted, I probably should have considered the cat creature a priority target since we've seen that happen often enough that it should feel like something I would want to avoid off the bat. But for one thing, the enemy only ever seems to do that move once in a single fight, no matter how many cats they have in a given group. So even when things go bad for us in that way, it's never anything that risks a full party death or anything of the sort, so I don't feel too much of a need to adjust and brace myself. For another thing, I just have this tendency to be pretty mindless and complacent as I go through random encounters unless forced not to. There might be more efficient ways to get through various random encounters, but unless I'm getting badly punished for it, I'll just stick with the same little tactics over and over again, and not really adjust them at all. It works for me in a vast majority of role-player games that have this kind of combat and menu system. Hell, I only seem to change things up in that regard when going through something like the Shin Megami Tensei series and its various spin-offs, and that's because they make hitting the enemy's weak point so damn rewarding. Or when the RPG is real-time action like the Tales of series or Kingdom Hearts. There, the action I'm doing isn't so much mindless as it's me continuously choosing not to use magic unless I absolutely need to heal, and just doing various dodges and strikes and blocks to fill in the gaps. It's kind of funny how I enjoy a number of games and universes that have magic, but I prefer to have the characters I play as stick with physical attacks. Wonder what that says about me. And great, now I have the distinct feeling I've asked that same question word for word at some point over the course of this same Let's Play. Hopefully I haven't been repeating myself too much. Anyway, looks like the Lamaya here can entice people regardless of gender. That certainly sparks some interesting thoughts. And I suppose it provides a way for Rosa and Cecile not to get annoyingly jealous as some magical spell makes their lover fall for someone else right in front of them. Not that this game will ever give us that kind of character moment. Though I suppose if this game was made about 2.5 decades later, then we'd get some cliché, over-the-top humor sequence of at least one of them verbally defending themselves after this embarrassment, and the other not believing a word of it. I'm not too sure if it's good or bad that we never got a moment like that. I just wish that the characters actually interacted with each other more. Because as is, this is not feeling like a very firm team. This is just a collection of individuals. Bloody hell, that Lamaya certainly gave us a lot of trouble. Hell, we've had outright boss fights that were less troublesome than that single snake lady. And we literally just took a few steps forward from that to end up in the absolute next fight. After that oddly frustrating encounter. No breather whatsoever. Not that I was expecting much of one, but dear God. It's crap like this that makes the fact that a lot of games try to do something other than random encounters these days feel pretty reasonable. There are negatives and positives to this game mechanic. Considering the sheer number of role-player games I intend to do that have random encounters, I certainly can't say I've grown to hate them. Why would I want to go through quite a number of Final Fantasy games, the Suikoden series at some point, and Wild Arms after that, if I didn't like random encounters on at least some level, or at the very least I've gotten pretty used to that sort of thing. And whenever I go through a role-player game where there are only a set number of enemies in a given area, like Dragon Age Origins or Baldur's Gate 3, part of me just feels like something is missing. That it just feels downright weird for me to be able to actually clear an area of all enemies, no chance to grind, and no more will spawn until the story progresses, assuming they ever do. Great. Now I'm sitting here wondering which of my next steps will start the next fight. It just varies so much when and how the game will have a random encounter happen. Is it the next step forward, or is it several dozen steps down the line? I kind of wish I could talk about something more related to the story than the random encounter rate and how that might work. Especially since I don't know programming anywhere near well enough to figure out how they managed to code that into the game or how that might change from game to game. But unfortunately, at the moment, there's not really much that they're building up. At best, we have the boss fight against the Fire Elemental boss later on, but I don't feel like there's much narrative weight there at the moment. Considering how things went for Golbez in the previous 2 times we saw him, I feel like he doesn't have any momentum behind him at all, so we might need another main villain or something. Tella brutalized him enough to force him to leave early the first time, which kind of hamstrung his menacing aura. Then, the returning Rydia helped Cecile to take him down in the Dwarven Castle when the rest of the team was down, forcing Golbez to pull a Diablos Ex Machina to be allowed to gain any sort of victory there. It just honestly feels like he should be done, and somebody else takes his place. Now, that's not to say that a main villain in a game like this absolutely has to be the strongest around, but it's not like Golbez has done all that much to give himself credibility as a mastermind after we dealt with the water fiend that was faking being the king. Hell, it was the mind-controlled Cain who came up with the hostage exchange for a crystal idea. Golbez just did that to be an asshole to Cecile for some reason, and Cain's suggestion just made him go, oh, this is actually useful. So if there is some kind of personal issue between Cecile and Golbez, it should have been revealed and outright developed. Don't just make the villain spiteful simply because he's the villain. Especially when Cecile never met or even heard of the guy before he came out of nowhere to start commanding the Red Wings, the very group that Cecile used to be the captain of. And that tidbit didn't feel like it was used all that much at all. We never had to fight against our old comrades or anything. It was just thrown in there haphazardly, hasn't been built up in any way, and then, oh, the Red Wings are no longer under his control out of nowhere, but yet he still has airships for some reason. Anyway, looks like we're gonna have to wait for next time for us to finish this dungeon.